Hello everyone, I am Julian Morris with the Channel 5 News. In the headlines, government constructs temporary housing for displaced Hurricane Maria victims. A national policy for small business development to be finalized by the end of this year. And the opposition leader wants more clarity on the structure of the Climate Resilient Executing Agency of Dominica. The details coming up. First stop in the news, displaced people seeking refuge at Roseau schools will soon have a place of their own. The temporary housing project being funded by government is scheduled to be completed by this weekend. The information from the Ministry of Housing is that 4 buildings are under construction. 28 units will feature single and 2-bedroom apartments. 50 to 60 locals are employed with the project. In other top stories tonight, parliamentary opposition leader Lennox Linton has called for more clarity on the structure of the Climate Resilient Executing Agency of Dominica. Government has proposed the formation of a special committee to implement a vision towards Dominica becoming the first climate resilient country in the world. Mr. Linton said government's existing low-carbon climate resilience strategy of 2011 should have strengthened the country's climate resilience.
There was a lot of work that was carted to be done in the area of slope stabilization, in the area of making the road network more climate resilient settlement, housing settlements, and climate resilient growth engines, agriculture, tourism, etc. The strategy was clear, and if you go back in that strategy right now, you will not see, and you hear what the government is saying now, you will not hear anything that we claim needs to be done urgently. That is not in the strategy.
Linton's criticism is that government has done little to achieve the goals of the strategy.
Now we are being hit by this Category 5 at a time when we should have been showing, based on the work done with the strategy, how resilience can be developed to cope with the onslaught of a Category 5. We had nothing to show. We did not build even a single climate resilient shelter, although that was provided for in the strategy.
He has also questioned the authenticity of the role of the Climate Resilient Executing Agency of Dominica.
But what is CREED going to do? The Prime Minister made a grand announcement at the pledging conference in New York. Has CREED been formed? Do you know who the officers are? Is there a board of directors? Who is on this CREED, this Climate Resilient Executing Agency for Dominica? Or was it a show for the world community to say, well, we have an independent agency that is going to be subjecting itself to the disciplines of good governance and oversight from the parliament? And I hear they want $3.5 million to do what? So I'm hearing about this CREED. On the face of it, it might be an excellent idea, but I don't know what the intention of the government is. Based on what has happened in recent years with institutions that we are supposed to form to give us a better handle on this climate resilient development, but we did not do it. I'm not sure what CREED is going to do.
And in related news, Prime Minister Skerrit says the citizens of Dominica will participate in the process towards making the country more climate resilient.
They'll be part of the process. I mean, we will have consultations with them, as we've started already, as a matter of fact. We've started the consultations. So the idea is every one of us in Dominica will have been consulted in one way or the other. And we would have the necessary documentation that the government has in terms of when we say we're building greater resilience in agriculture, what do we mean? What are we going to be doing? What kind of crops are we going to be growing? In which areas will be supporting those growing of crops? That's one issue. The second issue you have is, in, for example, rebuilding. Which codes are you following? You know, giving people a detail and so on, designs and the codes. And so there are different elements of it, and of course we'll be sharing that with the public.
In more news, the Ministry of Commerce is working with the OAS to finalize a policy for small business development in the country, and this is expected to be finalized by the end of this year. Policy guidelines would be important for those working within micro and small business development. Legislation would also be needed to make effective any policy on small business development. The Ministry of Commerce says it's working hard to put in place both the policy and the accompanying legislation for the development of the small business sector. In 2016, government contracted the services of a local consultant to help formulate the small business policy, but due to setbacks, the goal was not achieved.
We were able then, because the OAS is working with us on small business development centers, that is ensuring that we have advisory services and support to our MSME sector. They are working with us in that, and that has been going reasonably okay. There are a few hitches we have to continue to work on. And they came in and helped us, and they started. Actually, they sent us a draft, which we are looking at, and we've been meeting weekly via video conferencing with that new consultant who's working with us. We have a very good friend in the OAS by Miss Penko, Reno Penko. She's a Caribbean technocrat working at the OAS, and they have been giving us tremendous support in that regard. And of course, the minister, it's a team of us in the ministry, the Honorable Minister, Mr. Stevenson, and myself, and then we have the support from DYBT, Dr. Douglas. Is a team of us sitting as we dialogue with the consultant. We bring in our other partners like the manufacturing sector, the NDFD, the Aid Bank, and we bring them on board as we are moving along with the drafting and the refining of the language to go in the policy.
The government of Dominica, through the Ministry of Commerce, we are currently more than 80% at an advanced stage with our small business policy, and pretty much the same standard with our small business legislation. So in future disasters, God forbid, a lot of the things that we're doing now, our institution would have been strengthened to such an extent that a number of things would then be automatic. You are a registered business, you're incorporated, you have your tax account number, the regime of incentives that would be detailed in the small business policy as well as the small business legislation, that would speed up the process substantially to get persons to get back on their feet a lot faster. So today we are not only building back better physical structures, but we are strengthening our institutions to ensure that micro, small, and even medium enterprises can bounce back way a lot faster and prosper.
It was announced on Wednesday that the World Bank had provided 8 million EC dollars intended for micro and small businesses affected by Hurricane Maria. Recipients of the emergency grant funding can expect monitoring and evaluation and an impact assessment by the World Bank. The micro and small business sector, usually referred to as the informal sector, is expected to benefit from institutional strengthening provided by the World Bank. Information gathered in the grant application form will help set up a database to strengthen government's position in sourcing technical assistance from the World Bank to help with packaging, labeling, and marketing. Dominica has over 10,000 micro and small businesses. And of course, as you know, it's Carnival season. Only one Calypso tent will be hosting a series of events for Mass Dominic 2018.
This, as the Showdown Mass Camp will not stage a season of shows this year. One of the directors of Showdown Mass Camp, Daryl Bob, explained that the camp has decided to take a year off to re-strategize and come back stronger in 2019.
As to whether there will be a tent, I know for sure there won't be a season of tents. But however, we may be doing at least one presentation. And that is just hanging in the air. The feasibility of that is still, hanging in the air, whether we should do it under what arrangements and so on. Because the real reason for not having a tent this year is I think Mass Camp has sort of overwhelmed itself with a lot of responsibilities of other years. And we have decided to take a year off so that we can retreat and figure out how we're going to deal with what we have accrued over the years. And how do we refocus and come in another season. And I think we needed a year, at least a year off, to figure that out. And as such, we won't be doing a season of events this year, but we may do one presentation. And that still isn't written in stone.
Bob also cited dwindling sponsorship, especially post-Hurricane Maria, as a major factor in the decision not to host a mass camp this year.
The passage of the hurricane did impact our decision, because for you to run an event like that, you need sponsorship. And one of the things Mascamp has been suffering with is the ability to attract sponsorship. Mascamp has been affected for political reasons. There are people who are not interested in supporting the camp because of its political connotation, that very heavy slant on political tunes and so on. And I think that most business persons felt as if they didn't want to associate because they felt they'd be in some way victimized. And as such, we coming after Marriott obviously makes the situation worse, because you already don't get much offerings, and then here it is that this hurricane has come and affected the private sector so much that if you're going to get anything, it'll be even less than what you have been getting, which was insufficient in the past anyway. So we've decided to use that as an opportunity to just chill out and will and come again.
The Showdown Mascamp director went on to explain that while there would not be the regular staging of the camp, its Calypsonians are free to explore other options of performing during the carnival season.
We had a meeting recently and we left it all up to the Calypsonians to figure it out as to what their taste, what their desires are. If they still want to perform for the public, it's up to them. Whether they want to sing at another tent, I don't know if another tent will accept them. That has been a challenge in previous years, and I don't expect it to be any easier this year. So the whole thing is up to them. But we have Calypsonians who will be participating in the competition, who may not be performing on a weekly basis at any tent. And I can speak for myself right here, because it's not something that some of us necessarily need to do. But those who have the desire for performing and so on, it's up to them whether they want to approach another organization or not. But we have not set a policy on that at all.
Okay, so if they want to sing at Stardom, they're free to do so.
Absolutely.
The Renegades, they can feel free to go Renegades tent, that kind of thing.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Meantime, chairman of the Stardom tent says Mascamp Calypsonians are welcome to perform at the tent.
Well, I'm sure one or two will perform. And this fellow, they were talking about this fellow who sang Former Line. Apparently the song went on very well. He's keen on coming. But I can't tell you exactly who we're going to have, but we'll definitely accommodate a few.
Showdown Mascamp has been a regular feature on the Carnival calendar for over 15 years. Reporting for Channel 5 News, I am Andrea Louis.
Children in the east of Dominica affected by Hurricane Maria to receive assistance from the East Dominica Children's Federation. Andrea Louis has that report.
The Federation, whose work centers around child protection, was able to set up several child-friendly spaces in the east of Dominica to provide protective environments for children in the wake of last year's Category 5 hurricane. Coordinator of the East Dominica Children's Federation, Velma Moses Joseph, told the Channel 5 News that the Federation has not been without its challenges in providing productive, friendly settings for the children.
We have had major challenges because we wanted to start off in November, and some of them are still, especially in the Kainago territory, are still not up and running how we would like them to be, and the challenge is space, to find a space. So for example, we have the Woodford Hill School is totally destroyed. There's no place there. The buildings that are big enough have no roof. So we have a tent, and we set up the space in the tent. So we have a tent in Woodford Hill, one in Wesley, one in Marigot. La Plaine is a tent, Monjon is a tent that we use. So we use tent, Snakeu is a tent that we use to do the child-friendly spaces, and then getting other big enough space, safe enough spaces is a challenge. So that is what, we have volunteers, they're motivated to go, but the space to house the child-friendly spaces is the challenge really. And school time. Because for example, Woodford Hill Primary School goes to school from 12 to 4. Wesley Primary, at the Wesley Primary School goes to school from 8 to 12. So getting the children, we have to do it on a weekend if you really want to get them to participate. So that's a challenge too. And then you have volunteers doing it. So you really have to get commitment from these people for you to be able to be successful. And I must say hats off to them. They are coming on weekends to work with the children.
The Federation is working in collaboration with Israel Aid and UNICEF to conduct sessions in the child-friendly spaces, and Joseph noted it is important for the psychological well-being of the children that such space has been created for them.
What the child-friendly space does is it provides an opportunity and a venue for children to come and have fun and be children, because, as you know, the school system is not regularized as yet, and children, some of them go to school, some of them stay home. So we provide that opportunity 2 days or 3 days a week, 3 hours a week for children to come. And when they come there, they do all sorts of things. We set up libraries, mini libraries. We have mats and toys, so they play. We have facilitators who are trained to do a little psychosocial support with them, so they engage them in activities that will help them to just be children. In terms of how traumatized they are, children deal with things differently. They have different way of expressing themselves. So a professional may be better able to tell you if a child is traumatized or how traumatized they are. But then, like I tell the volunteers, you look at children's reaction. If rain starts to fall, you look to see who is hiding, who don't want to go outside, and these things, and then we report it to professional people if we ever come across those situations, that these children can get help. But all in all, I think the children are a resilient set of children, and they bounce back fast.
The East Dominica Children's Federation covers the areas of Calibishi to Dalis. Joseph also sounded a call to parents to be vigilant with respect to their children, especially during these post-Maria times.
Because we're a child agency, we got some gifts in kind from Hato and Foundation through Child Fund, and what I did not, it was hygiene kits. I did not give it to the parents. I went to every school and hand-delivered to the children, and comments from the teachers, they were happy that the children received something, because, you know, parents go, they get their relief, they get whatever, and they're adults and they're busy doing things what adults do. But the children, it's like they got, you could see the smiles on their faces, they got something for themselves that they can talk about. So I did that. I did small projects with 2 health centers where I speak with the parents, the discussions with how they felt during this storm, how they're feeling now, and to help them understand the feelings that they have. Their children have similar feelings, so they have to look out for those children and ensure that they are safe. Safety doesn't necessarily mean that not a broken arm or a cut, but safety in terms of protection, in terms of where you send them, there's no electricity. How do you look out for your children and ensure that they are safe?
Outside of providing child-friendly spaces for children, a number of partners had also come on board to help distribute gifts and other much-needed items to vulnerable children and their families in these areas. Reporting for Channel 5 News, I am Andrea Louis.
And in sports, normalcy continues to return to the sports division as it kicked off one of its flagship programs on Thursday. The coaching caravan, which targets primary schools around the island, aims to impart the basic knowledge of cricket and netball to the youth. Coordinator of the sports division, Trevor Shillingford, says due to the hurricane, the start date of the program had been delayed for 4 months.
That is a program which normally begins at the start of the academic year, sometimes in early October. But because of the passage of the hurricane and the late reopening of schools, we have had to relook the program. There were a number of challenges because whereas a number of our primary schools would traditionally run from 9 to 3:30, most of them are now operating from 9 to 1. So we had to make some sort of alterations to the programs to sort of accommodate some of the schools who would have to make that those changes. And I think we are now in a position where we can deliver the program. And as a matter of fact, the program has actually started today, and we expect the program to continue from here until Monday, and it is something that will be happening on a weekly basis until the end of the academic year.
The coaching caravan will run for approximately 5 months, after which a national competition will be held among participating schools.
It is cricket coaching, that is the very basics of cricket coaching to the primary school students, and also the basics in netball coaching. It is done in a sort of developmental phase where we move from the very basics to the most advanced. And when we get to the period of just around May, we actually get into the stage where we are now preparing the students for participation in competition, which will take place towards the end of June. And following the school's competition, the best students are selected for our post-competition training, which will take place during the summer period.
The flagship event is in its 9th year, but Shillingford says due to the irregular school hours brought about by the passage of Hurricane Maria, there will be less participation by pupils this time around.
Last year, we realized about 95% participation in the program. The exception being the Seventh-day Adventist schools, since they don't take part in the competitive aspects of the sporting programs. And there were a few schools with very small populations. Like you might find some of the schools where you have less than 20 students at a school. So some of these schools not in a position to benefit from the program. But as we speak, for this new period, I think we have dropped a bit in terms of the numbers, because some of the schools that are on a shift system where the students would have to come back in the afternoon. But all is not lost. We are looking at ways of having some sort of consideration given to some of the schools.
The first session of the coaching caravan covered the west coast areas of Massac to Jubla. And to end the news, we take a look at the headlines again. Government constructs a temporary housing for displaced Hurricane Maria victims. A national policy for small business development to be finalized this year. And the opposition leader wants greater clarity on the structure of the Climate Resilient Executing Agency of Dominica. Feel free to contact us at news@marpin2k4.com. You can also access our past newscasts on our YouTube channel and at tdnentertainment.net. On behalf of the entire production team, I am Julian Morris, thanking you for joining us. Do join us again tomorrow.